coming up just now with Commissioner Yohanan Danino, head of the Israeli police, with the Sheriff Lee Baka, who we also heard last night, with Professor Alex P. Schmidt, the Director of Terrorism Research Initiative from the Netherlands. And without any further ado, I would like to introduce General Commissioner Yohanan Danino, because he has to leave here in a few minutes on assignment. And if there's one thing I'm not going to do is mess around with the head of the Israeli police. General Commissioner Yohanan Danino is the head of the Israeli police. Among other posts, he has led the unit of international crime investigations and the police Southern Command. He was also involved in high-profile investigations against top politicians. The Israel Defense Force, he served in the Israel Defense Force until 1982 in the 35th Brigade, 890 Regiment, after which he joined the Israeli police and studied law at Tel Aviv University. During his studies, he was charged with managing the volunteer base of the Civil Guard. He then became a prosecutor on behalf of the police and went on to head the investigations office of the Sharon sub-district. In 1998, he became the deputy commander of a new unit that fought car theft, and during his tenure, the number of thefts decreased significantly. In 2002, he was appointed to command the unit of international crime investigations and later helped found Lahav 433, also known as the Israeli FBI. From 2006 to 2008, Danino headed the investigations department. From 2008 to 2011, Danino headed the police Southern Command. During his tenure, he presided over the demolition of an illegal mosque in Rahat, which generated great controversy amongst Israeli Arabs, but Danino countered that refraining from the demolition would deal a severe blow to the rule of law in Israel. Danino replaced Dudi Cohen as chief of the Israeli police on May 1, 2011. He was praised by the Internal Security Minister Yitzhak Aharonovich for fighting for the rights of the police officers, amongst other things. As his first act as police commander, Danino split the northern district of the police into two, Haifa and the Galilee and Golan, and appointed a number of new commanders for the districts. Commissioner.
Thank you very much. I welcome this opportunity to address the honorable forum that gathered here today. I think it allows us to not only to exchange opinion and points of view about the situation, but also to establish means of communication and teamwork for the sake of our common interests and goals and mutual productivity. And we already started that with the sheriff, the honorable sheriff that I met before. These times are without a doubt presenting the Israeli police with many different challenges. Besides its traditional role in law enforcement, its firm war against all kinds of crime, with an emphasis, of course, of the organized and financial crimes, and on public corruption, the police force handles disruptions to public orders, and especially social protests that become very popular lately. Even while safeguarding the nation's border and protecting its security, most relevant right now is our preparations for the event that possibly expected this month upon the declaration of the Palestinian states, if it will happen. As you know, I was appointed the chief of police about 4 months ago, and actually, you already saved me. Actually, I wanted to tell you about my record, but we'll continue on. I think you did it better than me, I think. But the last job I did before I was appointed to Chief of Police, I served as the Southern District Commander during Operation Castled, when the home front actually turned into the front line. And hundreds of rockets were fired from Gaza Strip into population centers, including major cities. Throughout the operation, the police played a central role, and in fact were deployed in full force around the clock to defend lives while continuing to perform their usual functions. My experience as the Southern District Commander during Cast-Lead, for me, was a sort of an example of the abilities of the organization and its members, especially during a complex time. It was the best way to get to know and to understand the devotion of its officers to the police force and its tasks. And I think that I can say with confidence that most of the officers perform the duties with a feeling of a mission. That is also how I see my current task as the police commissioner, as a mission. September posed a new type of challenge for the Israeli police. The explosive potential of each event is obvious, and the police will have to plan out its moves wisely. One could say that recent experiences have been a kind of preparation for the police handling of coming events, both mentally and practically. Take, for example, the last terror attack on Highway 12 near Eilat a couple of weeks ago. Swift professional action by the Yamam team, which is a police unit, as you know, prevented a multi-stage attack from escalating into a much more tragic event. You could say that the Yamam team with the IDF forces saved the day. Unfortunately, a life was lost. A special unit and the police force, of course, as well as the entire nation of Israel. We lost warriors from Golani and from the Yamam. From the Yamam, it was Pascal Avrahami, a fighter who became a legend in his own time. And also 6 innocent Israeli citizens that just want to travel there in that area. In this case, the police force was proactive and even took the offensive, showing how it functions as a security organization in every respect. Within minutes after the terrorist cell entered Israel, the unit controlled the situation and, I repeat, prevented a much more disastrous attack. With regards to the recent rocket attack that started just after this event, the police force fulfilled its primary security duty. And I think, just like in the Operation Cast-Lead, the Israeli police actually was first on the scene of every Qassam or Grad-type rocket that landed in Israel. And we played a central role in transmitting messages of protection and security to the civilian population, actively helping take care of the wounded, evacuating them to hospitals, along with the MDA paramedics, and securing the affected area. Currently, we are seeing a lot of tension on the borders. We are identifying motives, intentions to carry out attacks against Israel. The weakened Egyptian government obviously means difficulties in coordinating security, and also that the gaps in security are being exploited by terrorist elements. The last incident in the Israeli embassy in Egypt was an example of the complex and delicate situation between the states and the fragile state of the Egyptian government. I think this fragile situation between the states is exploited by terror and extreme organization to harm Israel and Israeli interests by any means. These organizations take advantage on the open board, like between Egypt and Israel, not only to perform terror actions against Israel, but also to exploit the infiltrators coming from Sudan and Eritrea for their goals, which can be, you can look at it as human goals. They just want to earn money and send it to their families. But from the terror, both and crime aspects, we have a big problem with that community. The destabilizations, on the other hand, in the Syria is also potentially explosive and has its own implications for the complex and already delicate situation in the Middle East. The proclamation of the Palestinian states, if it will happen, will be followed potentially by widespread demonstrators of support, including inside Israel territory and by citizens of Israel. In this event, I have instructed the police to behave in the same way they behave towards the people living in the tents in Tel Aviv, with restraint and calm control, with sensitivity and tolerance towards the demonstrators, while encouraging and maintaining the channels of communication in order to avoid escalation. Nevertheless, here as well, all the police officers and commanders know, as do the demonstrators themselves, that any exception, meaning any violation of law and order, will immediately be addressed by the Israeli police with no compromises. The Israeli police does not passively sit by. We truly investigate every warning. We regularly evaluate the situation, seriously checking into expected scenarios, and we get organized accordingly. We prepare skilled personnel and equipment and shore up the means of cooperation with other security organizations, knowing that every challenge is a national mission, meaning that the police have an inherent and critical role in making sure that it is carried out successfully. The Israeli police cannot enjoy the privilege of focusing on one task or angle or activity. We have to remember, regardless to the September scenarios, that we must provide the Israeli citizens personal security from crime, and maintain their way and quality of life. That is why we presented the new police image, community-based police work, that is fundamentally aimed at providing services to the citizens as a central value. Based on this approach, every police officer obligated to get across the message in all dealings with citizens that the Israeli police is truthfully professional body working above board with quality and fairness, and that its job is to improve the quality of life and provide personal security for its citizens. To this end, it was clear to me that I had, first of all, to strengthen the standing of the police station, since it's the basic unit that was actually served the public. At the same time, we started hanging the service on the 911, the emergency lines of the Israeli police, by bringing a service-minded operators, including students and volunteers. We also decided to split the Northern District to better enforce the law and provide police services to residents of the North, practically in the minority sectors. And while on the subject of minorities, I wish to say that the Israeli police have an important role, perhaps the most central role, in increasing the sense of belonging among the Israeli Arabs. Because of this, and knowing how important it is to maintain police services equally throughout every part of Israel, in the villages as much as in the cities, we decided to establish more police stations in the north, south, and center of the country to work mostly in the Arab sector, providing the optimal response to crime and disorder among minority sectors, and at the same time improving police services for these citizens, thereby giving them better quality of life. Community-based police work also dictates how the police are handling the social protests. The protests that swept the country have been met with restrained and calm control on the part of the police. Officers were instructed to behave with tolerance and sensitivity, as I said before, towards the demonstrators who are exercising the democratic right to protest. Yet any time that the demonstrators crossed the line from legitimate protest to disruptions of law and order, the police took a clear, firm stance. We did not allow roads to be blocked on the fabric of life and rights of other citizens or harm them to be harmed. Freedom of speech and freedom to protest, like all other rights, are not absolute. And our job is to preserve the balance between opposing rights and to prevent any overstepping of the bounds of law. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you.
The commissioner is going to have to leave in 5 minutes, so we can entertain a couple of questions until he leaves, and then we'll continue with the rest of the panel. Questions in the audience? Anyone?
Hello. Sir?
Yes.
General.
Can you identify yourself and ask the question slowly?
I'm a career law enforcement officer from
Dan Enbol, Homeland Security Research, Washington. Can you elaborate on the use of non-lethal weapons by the police for crowd control, especially with the upcoming September events? Non-lethal weapons. Can you elaborate on the use of non-lethal weapons, neshek lo hereg, by your forces, especially in the future?
When I said that we are actually made all the preparations, this is one of the main preparations we did when it comes to the weapons that is not lethal weapons, and I think we recently actually brought to the Israeli police something like 50% more than we had before the last 3 months. Plus, we exercised the Israeli police force also something like 50% more than the usual policemen that we had before May. And I think it's just because we want to handle the situation if it will occur. I hope it won't. I hope that, it's okay to protest, it's okay to celebrate, it's okay to have, everything legitimate according to the law, and it's not just we're going to permit it, we're going to make sure that everybody that will participate in those protests will go back home safely. And that's our mission. And that's what we're doing now with all the leaders all over. If it's going to happen, we want them to behave exactly like the last protest we saw. I'm not talking about the extremes in sides, always you'll have them, but I'm talking in the main stream of the protests, and that's what we're doing.
We have one more question for the Commissioner.
Commissioner, back here. Are you seeing an anticipated trend between organized crime organizations in Israel and narcotics trafficking organizations, the nexus between those groups and terror organizations here?
Well, it's a good question. We always aware it's in the background when you're investigated these kind of cases. So you always ask if they'll decide not just to make money, if they'll have some other motives there inside. How can you handle that? And that's actually what we do with all the organizations all over the world. We have very good cooperations and mutual cases with the FBI, with the DIA, with other organizations in Europe, countries, and other organizations in the world. And we are aware of that. I can't say that we found that most of them are dealing with terror in each means, but we know that there are contacts. We know that in certain cases it happened. And in those cases, we, of course, cooperate with the Shin Bet and others in Israel. But you're right. It's one of our threats when it comes to terrorism. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I want to thank Commissioner